Environmental geophysics is basically the connection between geology and physics. Geology, what is geology? Geology is the study of the earth, especially the subsurface of the earth. And physics is the application of the physical formula applied in the earth's surface to explore any materials under the subsurface or outer planet. So geophysics is basically the deals with the prediction anomaly after adjusting model like gravity model or many other model. All those are based on the physical formula applied in the application. So environmental geophysics is basically related to the environment, geology and application of physical laws. So geology we know details like study of the earth. When we study the rocks or underground, the water also subsurface water or geology, that is the rocks composition and the structure, the deposition, petroleum, everything deals with geology, and that should be the under the surface of the earth. Physics we know the falling object from the upper high position, and it will follow the universal laws of gravitation, and that is F equal to mg, that is force of gravitational attraction is equals to any mass multiplied by the force of acceleration due to gravitation. So this is the universal law. So this deals with the physics, and any other laws those are applicable in this environmental geophysics. So geophysics is basically linked with environment, geology and physics. The definition is basically we can define the geophysics, which includes the application the principles of physics to the study of the earth and investigation of the interior of the earth, involving taking measurement at or near the earth's surface that are influenced by the internal distribution of physical properties. The analysis of these measurements reveals information on the earth's interior. So application of the physical properties can deals or can explain the picture of the subsurface, and there must be some formula or way of techniques how we can identify the subsurface materials. So that's the application of physical laws in geophysics. So all the issues related to environment like groundwater, petroleum exploration, or others which is related to environmental issue like glacier or some water related issue, those are applicable in the field that's called the environmental geophysics. Geophysical measurement, basically the picture shows the tools to obtain an image of the surface, the measurement processing and images. The source receiver here, these are one of the application for getting the picture of the subsurface. So we can use the source of any artificial source like sound wave, which can generate in the surface in our office or in our field of interest. Then we can get that source which is reflected back by the receiver. Then we can analyze this receiver information and we can predict the structure of the geology under the surface. Let's know the environmental geophysics, some application and some pictures in details using the geophysical laws. So here you can see the glacier or mountain, the application of seismic or electric method the people are using. Environmental geophysics is a relatively new field. Basically, uh, this field is relatively new because it can also be used to help locate sites for the underground waste disposal. Waste disposal, where we can use the site for underground waste disposal, we can use this method as a environmental geophysical method. Examine the archaeological site or even assist the police in their investigation of possible burial sites. Archaeological sites means any ancient structure or ancient any evidence built under the ground there must be examined using the geophysical methods. So that includes the environmental geophysics. It is primarily used to identify the map or predict the presence and potential movement of surface water and groundwater and to identify contaminants in the soil within the upper 10 to 50 meter of the earth's surface. So within this range, any underground water or movement or potentially this is the how we can get that we can identify or predict even. So this deals with the environmental geophysics. The definition of environmental geophysics includes those things. Here some branches of the environmental geophysics. Basically, environmental geophysics can be identified as the application of geophysical method to the investigation of near surface physico-chemical phenomena which are likely to have implications for the management of the local environment. So deals with the local environment, that is the investigation of the near surface like 10 to 50 meter near surface, any physico-chemical phenomena. The investigation of physico-chemical phenomena is the role of geophysical environmental geophysics. So that is the definition. The environmental geophysics can be defined like this. So here you can see the branches of environmental geophysics, like branches of geophysics. So in the green part, the environmental geophysics deals with the major part because this is recently very new field, and it is widely ap- using in our everyday life, environmental issues. Application of geophysical method in various sector. So here you can see the scientists are getting the bore log from the subsurface, and using, they are identifying the methods. Here, this is another use of environmental geophysical method, like related to water. This is glacier. Some people use as a resistivity method the glacier or some other way, and this is the field observation directly for directly penetrating artificial noise, artificial sound, or any source wave inside the ground. Here people are getting the archaeological site investigation using various method. This is the glacier using some seismic method. Here the engineering sector using some methods, some application in the engineering purpose. This is the environmental, the agriculture related. Here some method, many instrument they are using, some mining, petroleum geophysics, the magnetic, electric or seismic method in their field. Methods applied in environmental geophysics. The methods which can be applied in environmental geophysics, those are active method, basically two gross term, that is active and passive method. Active methods is basically defined as artificial source which can applied artificially and detect that, and collecting that source of signal artificially by our own materials. And passive method is basically the natural source like the gravity or magnetic field. So active method is seismic method. In seismic method, basically the people are using some signals, and that is the density variation, depends on the density variation of the materials underground. And electric method, that may be the active method, electrical pulse, penetrating electrical pulse, or electrical resistivity, or we can use some, we can detect the underground properties. So GPR method is spontaneous potential method, induced polarization method, electromagnetic method. Those are the list of active method. And gravity method and magnetic. We know gravity is universal everywhere in the earth. Magnetic property is universal in the earth. So that are the natural source, and who is applied everywhere in earth. And detecting the anomalies of this gravity field in underground, people can identify the difference of these anomalies and predict the subsurface materials which are different from surrounding materials. Same method can be applied in magnetic field, but here the properties is the magnetic properties of any materials located in underground. Here you can see one active method. This is the seismic method. Seismic source is artificially used, and the different layers, the seismic, the wave or seismic pulse can be reflected or some refracted properties, and again they are detecting by the geophone located in the surface, observing or identifying that receiving properties of the seismic source. People can understand the ground underground uh, regional structure or any materials, or even exploration of gas, oil, or any other coal inside the surface. So these are the active methods. Here the people can use the gravitational attraction for the identification of buried dense body and below the surface, ground surface. So if the acceleration due to gravity is applied, then we can see the difference of acceleration due to gravity anomalies. So observing these gravity anomalies, people can identify something different properties is located underground. So same properties is used in the magnetic field also. Some anomalies can be identified and people can understand that different object is located there than the surrounding materials. So these are the passive method. Here the slide is very summarized slide, and you can see the gravity is the properties, basically density variation, density anomalies of surrounding materials, and this is the property for the gravity method. And application is number one, the hydrocarbon exploration, coal, gas, and oil. Number two, regional geological studies, like over 100 square kilometer can be identified using this gravity method. Another is magnetic method. This is the property is basically the physical property of rocks, that is the susceptibility, and that can be used in application is for the exploration of hydrocarbon like coal, gas, oil. Regional studies like more than 100 square kilometer, and the exploration and development of the mineral deposits, these are the magnetic properties. The seismic reflection and refraction, those are based on the density variation, and use of this method is like hydrocarbon exploration and regional structure. Basically, no any method is completely satisfied by the geologist or by the geophysicist, because to get the real picture, people can use multiple method like together with gravity or magnetic method or seismic method. So depends on the purpose of the environmental issues that can be identified or explored. Sometimes seismic method can use resistivity method together with. So here is the total summarized form for this application and dependent the properties upon which this method is worked. Here the active and passive method, the advantage and disadvantage. So this is very summarized form. Like active method is better control noise source. Active method is the our artificial source, so we can have the better control to get sufficient amount of noise for penetrating the underground. And disadvantage is we need many equipment, and need to be very complex. On the other hand, passive method needs supply only sensor and data. This is the advantage. On the other hand, the disadvantage is less control getting noise. So noise makes the problem, because we cannot identify the real picture if we have too much noise. Noise is the unwanted signals receiving from the ground. We need only the real information. Noise makes the problem, so we have less control on it for the gravity and magnetic method. On the other hand, active experiment usually provides better depth control, so we can penetrate anywhere below the surface to get the real picture. The subsurface is the advantage, and field operation is we need time consuming and many logistic supports. These are the disadvantages for the active methods. And passive method, the advantage is We can use the wider area with cost effective, because we don't need to invest huge money for this gravity or magnetic method. This is the natural sources for the signal. And so we have the cost effective manner we can use with a wide area. But problem is here, the identification of the source of an anomaly is difficult. So anomalies of source, it might be difficult. So that is disadvantage. Here advantage: for the active method, many source or receiver configuration need to be used, allowing the wide area. And disadvantages is great survey design cost. Cost, of course, it will increase, because if we use many receiver or many source to get the real picture. This is the active method advantage and disadvantage. On the other hand, the advantage and disadvantage of the passive method is provide survey. We can get the survey very shortly, because we don't need to be ready for the many things. We can notice and easily make the survey, but the limitation is the specific problem we cannot solve. And another is advantage of active method is the setup experiment is very, we need many things, the quantity. The active method advantage is basically the we can use huge amount of data we can get. And but the problem is interpretation. We can be overwhelmed to get the interpretation, or processing makes the problem. Advantage of the passive method is interpretation. Quickly we can interpret this data, but we cannot get the detailed interpretation. So this is the last slide. What did you learn today? What is the passive physical geophysical method? Number one, this is the multiple choice question: gravity or seismic method. Answer in the comments below. So thanks for watching.